Hi! Today I'm gonna show you how to knit this cable design dog sweater with sleeves. Let's get started. Please check my description box for all the details, especially written pattern. Some people notice this design. That's because I knit my cable vest before, and this is exactly same cable design with my pocket. When I was knitting this vest, I really liked this cable design, so I thought maybe I should knit my dog sweater. Anyway, this dog sweater has sleeves. I'm gonna show you two ways. One is knitting sleeves during the dog sweater. The other one is after the sweater. A lot of people knitted my basic dog sweater. My basic dog sweater doesn't have a sleeve, but when you finish knitting, some people want to add sleeves. So I am going to tell you how to attach the sleeve after you're done knitting. I'm gonna put the timing in my description box. So whenever you don't want to hear it or watch, just skip it. Okay, so let's look at my new dog sweater. Double neck to start. It's optional. And I add rib edge because looks professional. Then cable design at the back. Also stretchy cast off. I used the technique, yarn over stretchy cast off before, but this time stretchy but different technique. So watch whole video first and then decide what do you want to include or exclude it. Cast on, multiple of 2. Mine, 70 cast on. This is 10-pound YORKIE. And it all depends on your needle and yarn sizes. So you really have to find out right cast on. So if you need my help, leave your comment, but I want to know which needle and yarn you want to use. After the cast, make sure you're facing to right side. That's the right side stitch, and this is wrong side stitch. Make sure it's not twisted, and then you will connect both ends and starting rib, which is repeat off, knit 1 and purl 1. You have to be very careful on the first row, and from the second row you just knit over knit stitch and purl over purl stitch. So if you make a mistake on the first row, your rib will be ruined. So this time, just knit 1 and purl 1, so you don't really, make a mistake, but just be careful. By the way, I'm using magic loop technique. You don't have to if you have right length of the cable. And if you never done magic loop technique, I put the link in my description box, so you might have to do little practice. Double neck. I knit rib about 3 inches high, and I'm going to fold inward like that and picking up the bottom stitch. Anyway, the first stitch is knit on the right side, which means purl on wrong side. So you go straight down, right? And then picking up the bottom of that stitch right there. Then the first stitch was knit, so knit two together to attach. There you go. Next, purl on right side, knit on wrong side. You gotta go straight down. This is very important. Do not pick up the stitch next or next stitch. You have to go straight down. And this time, purl on the right side, so purl two together. So let's look at the next stitch. Knit on the right side and then purl on the wrong side. You just have to, picking up the next stitch. So you don't really have to worry about, knit and purl anymore. But you just have to go straight down and knit two together. There we go. And next, purl on the right side. So knit on the wrong side and picking up the bottom of the stitch. And this time, purl two together. Again, this is completely optional. If this is too much to do, just skip it. But if you want your sweater looks a little bit more professional, why don't you try it? It's actually worth to do. And it's not that hard. Once you get used to, it's quite easy. Next, I'm going to talk about rib edge. This is how it looks after the double neck. And now, rib edge row number 1. All knit. This is super simple. Put the beginning marker in and then all knit 1 row. And from row number 2, it's not that hard, but a little bit awkward. Row number 2. Knit 1 to start. And repeat off. After knit 1, repeat off. Pick up the previous stitch. Hook onto left needle like that, and then purl 1 with the stitch you just hook onto, and then knit 1. You increase 1 stitch there, and again repeat off, picking up the previous stitch right there and hook onto left needle, then purl 1 and knit 1. You just have to, keep doing this until the begin marker. Picking up the stitch, the previous stitch, right side, then purl 1, knit 1. One more time, picking up previous stitch, right side, hook onto left needle, and purl 1. Keep the needle still stay in and purl 1 and knit 1. That's it. And row number 3. Slip 1 knitwise. slip 1 knitwise. That's the start. Just like that. And then repeat off yarn front, obviously because purl 1, but from behind. Purl 1 from behind, then yarn back and slip 1 purlwise. Let's do that again. Yarn front, purl 1 from behind, back loop, and yarn back, slip 1 purlwise. You have to keep doing this until begin marker. And I use the word yarn front and yarn back because I want you to make sure where the working yarn should be. So I didn't want to use yarn over or anything like that. So make sure, you know, the yarn has to be front or yarn has to be back. And next, row number 4. Easy, row number 4. Knit 1 to start. Then repeat off, slip 1 purlwise. Then knit 1. Again, repeat off, slip 1 purlwise and knit 1. Super easy. You just have to repeat. And row number 5 would be last row. Just take your time. Row number 5. Repeat of FL1K, which means flip 1 stitch knitwise. I increase stitch, so now we will decrease stitch. Flip the stitch. There you go. Not the slide, flip. Then yarn front, purl 2 together from behind using the back loop right there. It's a little bit awkward. Take your time. You will get used to it. There you go. Back loop from behind, purl 2 together. There you go. Sorry, I'm just trying to, fix. I'll show you a couple more times, so just be patient. Make sure purl 2 together, okay? From behind using back loop. There you go. And again, yarn back, flip 1 stitch knitwise, then yarn front, then purl 2 together from behind using back loop. There you go. And one more time. Yarn stay front, totally fine, and flip 1 stitch knitwise, then purl 2 together from behind using back loop. That's it. And one last stitch would be just a regular purl 1. Again, this is optional. If you don't like this, just skip it. But little bit of the effort, double neck and rib edge looks more professional sweater. After rib edge, all knit one row. Can you see that, double neck and rib edge looks beautiful. But do I want to knit this way all the time for dog sweater? Maybe not. Takes too much time. Next, set up for increasing row and adding the side marker and everything. Okay, I changed the begin marker. You should actually, use the different marker so it's easy for you to see. Knit 1 to start, and PM, which is place the marker. This is gonna be the mid stitch marker. Knit 1, then place another marker, and then knit few stitch. Then I want you to stop because I want to talk about other stuff. Still setting up row. Now I want you to add side markers. I want you to count from mid stitch to the left and right evenly and add 2 markers, divide by front piece and back piece. The mid stitch would be the middle of the front. And I also put the green marker on the back. That's gonna be leash opening right there. So it's really up to you how big you want. And I actually count and then make it small leash opening, but I changed my mind. It was 7 originally, and then I changed to 15 stitch total. It's really up to you because I am going to do the very tight buttonhole method for the leash opening. So wider, opening would be better. Anyway, this is still setting up row. And here is just a regular buttonhole. Bind off on the first row, and then second row you add new cast. So very stretchy. But this time I want to use 1 row buttonhole technique, and it's gonna be tighter. Sometimes leash opening will be stretched out. I didn't really like it. So, this time I'm gonna try to use the 1 row buttonhole technique. Here comes leash opening. Yarn front, slip 1 purlwise, then repeat off, yarn back, slip 1 purlwise, and PSSO, pass slip stitch over. Yarn back, slip 1 purlwise, then PSSO. You just have to do 15 stitch. There we go. Slip 1 and PSSO. Slip 1, PSSO. This creates tighter bind off. And again, it's a little bit tight, so just take your time. Don't be in rush. And then if you're not using the marker, make sure you count, because it's important to know how many stitch you bind off. There you go. I see the another green marker, which is end of the leash opening. Again, this is still setting up row. I'm using 1 row buttonhole technique right now. Here comes. But this is not end. After you remove the marker, you need 1 more stitch to bind off, because that was only 14 for me. So 1 slip and then PSSO. This is the 15 stitch bind off. Then transfer that last stitch onto left needle. Then turn the work like that. And working yarn is on the left side. So what you have to do is you have to do cable cast on, and I have to cast on 16 stitch, not 15, because I want you to cast on whatever you bind off plus 1 stitch. Okay, so this is the new technique, cable cast on. Put the needle in between first 2 stitch and then knit 1 there. Pull that stitch and then hook onto left needle like that. And then don't pull the working yarn, okay? Whenever it's still loose, you put the needle in, because if you pull the working yarn, those 2 stitches gonna be very tight, and it's really hard for you to put the needle in. So whenever it, the stitch is loose, put the needle in. There you go. And pull as much as you want, and then hook on. Kind of twisted way. Pull the stitch as much as you want, and then hook. Again, how many casts do you have to add? Whatever the number you bind off plus 1. I bind off 15 stitch, so I am going to add 16 new cast. And I'm just actually doing a little bit faster now, because now you know what I'm doing, right? So again, if you pull the working yarn too hard before you put the needle in, it's going to be really hard to put the needle in. So make sure about that. And then, again, if you think this is too much, you can bind off on the first row, and then second row, you can, add new cast. You can watch my basic dog sweater tutorial. It's really up to you, but it's always nice to have choices, and it's nice to learn new technique. That's why here and there I want to use different technique. Anyway, seems like I'm done. I add 16 cast, and then now you can turn the work back on right side. And as you can see, it's not connected, right? So you have to reconnect. All you have to do is yarn back and slip one purlwise and then PSSO. You have to bind one off. This is the reason why I want you to add one more additional cast and then transfer that stitch back onto left needle. And when you count, for me 15, that's the, leash opening, and one stitch actually belongs to the right side stitch, and this doesn't change any stitch count. And then that, the stitch you transferred, just keep knitting. This is still setting up row, still one row hasn't finished. There you go. Now you finish. All you did is, set up, put the mid stitch marker, side marker, and you already made the leash opening. Quite deal. Let's compare. 2 rows buttonhole, very stretchy. But if you don't like, the sweater stretched out around that neck area, this 1 row buttonhole technique would be ideal. But this 1 row buttonhole technique is not good for the leg opening. Leg opening should be more flexible. Don't you agree? I want dog to feel comfortable. So, if you want to use the buttonhole technique for the leg, I believe you should use 2 rows technique. Anyway, now we start increasing around the chest, also back design. So add 2 markers for design at the back. You count stitches evenly from side marker, and you need 26 stitch for the design. Now I'm going to talk about 2 different places. One with the increasing chest, and the other one is back design. Probably easier for you to get the written pattern in front of you. Let's start with increasing first. Increasing row 1. Knit until the marker, which is, there's only 1 stitch, I believe. This is, after the setup. So begin marker, and there's 1 stitch, so knit 1 there. Then make 1 right. You use running thread. Pick up the running thread like that and hook onto left needle like that. V shape out front. That's make 1 right. And then knit front loop. This is make 1 right. Slide the marker, knit 1. Slide another marker, then make 1 left. Again, using the running thread, picking up the running thread like that from front this time, V shape at the back. Then knit back loop. Looks like, the purl, but it's knit back loop like that. This is make 1 left. Then knit everything except the back design. By the way, increasing is every other row. Next row should be all knit, except back piece. You have to follow the written pattern for back piece. Anyway, here is back piece row number 1. It says right side. It doesn't really matter right now, but you will have to know which is right side or wrong side. Anyway, purl 2 to start. And T3B, which is twist 3 back. You need cable needle. Twist 3 back. Pick up 1 with cable needle and put the cable needle at the back, and then knit 2 from left needle. Then come back to cable needle, and there's only 1 stitch there, purl 1. This is twist 3 back. Purl 5. I'm actually knitting, but I made a mistake. There we go. Now I notice. Coming back and start all over again. After T3B, you have to make purl 5. If you make a mistake, you ruin whole design, so you gotta be very careful. And then C6B, which is cable 6 back. Pick up 3 stitch with cable needle, 1, 2, 3, and put at the back. Then knit 3 from left needle. Then come back to cable needle and knit 3 from cable needle. I'm a little bit struggling because it's right on top of the leash opening, so it's a little bit awkward, but you just have to take your time. That's it. And again, purl 5. After purl 5, we do T3F, which is twist 3 front. Now, with the cable needle, you pick up 2 stitch. T3B, you have to pick up 1. And anyway, those 2 hold it out front. Then purl 1 from left needle. Then come back to cable needle. Then knit 2 from the cable needle, which you just picked. Then there's 2 stitch left and purl 2. And after the marker, you just have to knit until the beginning marker. I am going to focus difficult row, so I'm not talking about every single row for back design. Increasing row number 2, all knit. Again, if you have more than 1 stitch in between mid chest marker, you did something wrong. Has to be 1 stitch whole time. Anyway, increasing around the chest, you just have to repeat row number 1 and row number 2 until you hit the top of dog's front legs and finish on wrong side. Back design, row number 3. Row number 2 was so easy, so you follow my written pattern. Anyway, purl 1 to start full back design, and T3B. You already done that, so it's easy. Pick up 1 and hold it at the back and knit 2 from left needle, then come back to cable needle, then purl 1. This is T3B. And purl 4. After that, new technique coming, which is T5B, which is twist 5 back. Pretty much same idea, different numbers, that's it. So with the cable needle, pick up 2 stitch instead of 1. 2 stitch, hold it back, then knit 3 from left needle, then come back to cable, then purl 2. After this, T5F, which is twist 5 front, you probably have some idea now. Pick up 3 stitch from left needle and hold it out front. Then purl 2 from left needle, come back to cable needle, then those 3 stitch, knit 3. Then purl 4. After purl 4, we already done, which is T3F. Now super easy, but I don't want you to get confused, those numbers. Pick up 2, hold it out front, purl 1 from left needle, then knit 2 from cable needle. Then 1 last stitch, purl 1. This is row number 3. And after this, you can do row number 4 and row number 5. And I'll meet you back row number 6. Back row number 6. Straightforward, except make bubble. Knit 2 to start, purl 1, and then make bubble. So next stitch, you have to do knit front and back and front, 3 stitch. Front and back, then 1 more, front. You create 3 stitch in 1 stitch. There you go. So you have 3 stitch there, kind of sticking together. Turn the work. Oops. I dropped the stitch. When you drop the stitch, just calm down and pick it up. And then yarn back, then knit 3, those 3. Knit. It's a little bit tight, so be careful. Knit, and 1 more. You have to do knit 3 times. So this is first time, and second time starts knit 2 and 3, and you're facing the wrong side now, and then knit 3 one more time, and then turn around. You're facing 2, right side again. There we go. And yarn back, slip 1 purlwise, and knit 2 together, and PSSO, pass slip stitch over. So now you have 1 stitch left. This is it. And doesn't look like bubble, but it will look like bubble later. And then purl 2, and kind of, you have to knit tight so the bubble stays. And knit 3 and purl 8, and you just follow the written pattern, and I'll show you one more time of make bubble. Once you get used to it, it's easy. And I believe knit 3 there and purl 2, then make bubble. So first of all, you have to do knit front, back, and front. You create 3 stitch in 1 stitch. Okay, zoom up a bit. Okay, so 1 stitch, knit front, do not drop the stitch off yet, and back. This is the second stitch, and then last one. This is a little bit tough. Knit front again. So you create 3 stitch instead of 1. Turn the work and put the yarn back, then knit those 3. And you have to knit 3 times. This is the first time. And every time you have to turn the work. There you go. This is second time, knit 3. And turn around. This is the last time. Knit 3. Third time. And then back to facing to right side. Then you have to finish it, which is yarn back, slip 1 purlwise, knit 2 together. Now you have to decrease the stitch, right? And then PSSO, pass slip stitch over. And then next, purl 1, kind of knit tightly, then the bubble stays, then knit 2. This is row number 6, and bubble there. It's beautiful. See, it kind of looks around now. And this design complete row number 12. So repeat row number 1 to row number 12 until your desired length, which is end of the the sweater pretty much. And for the front piece, you just keep knitting, increasing until top of dog's leg, like this. It's still a little bit too short. And here comes. I think I increased enough. And now let's do the leg opening prep 1. So there's the orange marker and green marker. In between orange marker, there's the begin marker. That's the leg opening. I made a plan. But the first orange marker, it's in the middle of the begin marker. So I'm gonna pass first. I'm gonna start the other side of the leg first. So just knit until the second leg. Here comes. And no more increasing, by the way. Whenever you hit the second leg marker, just remove it and grab the scrap yarn and then start knitting those leg stitches. Knit with other scrap yarn, and then you should use contrast color, because later you're gonna cut this scrap yarn, so you really have to see, right? If it's the same type of color, it's really hard to see. So knit until second marker, end of the leg. There we go. Remove the marker again and turn the work. Then now transfer, stitch back onto right needle. Looks like a two stitch there. That's because I used the end yarn, so never mind. And turn around and cut the scrap yarn you're not gonna use anymore, and then with the main yarn just knit, pretend nothing happened. And you have to do same thing for the other side of the leg. And back design, just continue whatever your row on. Again, this is one of the technique for the leg opening. If you don't like this way, just do the 2 rows buttonhole technique, same as usual. You bind off, and then next row you cast on, and you just move on. Completely fine. I just want to keep the stitch for the sleeves, because I'm kind of lazy. I don't really like knit up, but you don't have to. You can actually add sleeves later on. So just watch my video until the end, and then you choose whichever. Again, the other side of the leg, use the scrap yarn and then knit whole leg stitch. And if you watch my vest tutorial, you probably have some idea. Oh, I know what she's doing. What I doing is I'm gonna cut those, the purple yarn later on, and then picking up all the stitch top and bottom, and I'm gonna use that stitch for sleeves. Pretty much it. So if you don't like picking up those stitch, you don't need to. You can knit up later. But again, if you're a knitter, you want to learn new technique, right? Anyway, so I start knitting with the main color of yarn, and just nothing happened. Just keep knitting after this. which is only for the back design, because for the tummy, you're not increasing anymore. Well, if you have chubby, dog, you might, but usually, big enough. So keep knitting until your desired length for the tummy, usually a lot shorter than back. Now, leg opening prep 2. I already did the other side. It's gonna be like that. And you can use needle, and I use tapestry needle, 2 of them, because that'll be easier for me because not too many stitches. So 2 tapestry needle and 1 scrap yarn, and then picking up all the stitch, which means you have to cut that scrap yarn, which is the purple color yarn, carefully. Okay, so let's prepare 2 tapestry needle and 1 scrap yarn. If you don't have 2 tapestry needle, use the knitting needle, that's fine. There we go. And 1 scrap yarn, both ends, right? Like that. Now you have to cut that purple yarn right there. And I have 14 stitch for the the one leg, but it's gonna be 28 stitches you need to pick, because top stitch and bottom stitch. So now you cut. You can actually pick up knit stitch little by little, take the yarn off little by little, but for me, I am going to pick stitch with the scrap yarn like that, and take the yarn off, whichever you want. I'm picking up the bottom stitch slowly. Still, the purple scrap yarn is attached, so you don't really have to worry about it too much. But if you're, taking the scrap yarn off and then, picking up the stitch at the same time, you really have to be careful. You don't want to lose any stitch. Top and bottom, 14 stitch each. There you go. And pull the tapestry needle slowly and cut the purple yarn little by little. Just take your time. This is the reason why I told you to use contrast color of yarn. It's so much easier. There you go. And after this, you have to count stitches. Top and bottom, 14 stitch each, so 28 stitch total. After this, you can put this on to your dog to make sure everything is okay. The sizing, right? So take your time. And this prep you can do at the very end if you don't need to put the sweater on the dog, here and there, right? But I just want to show you, if you want to put the sweater on your dog to make sure size is okay during the knitting, you have to do it now. There you go. Ta-da! This is leg opening prep 2. And I am going to leave stitch like this until I finish the whole body. Then I'm gonna come back for the sleeve. There you go. Now I can put it on my dog. The perfect. Whenever you knit enough length for tummy, we will disconnect tummy and back piece, and that's enough for my dog. And you have to think how much you want for tummy. You don't have to do side. So I'm gonna, disconnect from the beginning marker and same stitch number the other side. Which means I have to finish right side. This is the reason why I said right side and wrong side, even though you're knitting in round. So I just finished right side there, and then you're picking up tummy stitch starting on the wrong side. Anyway, so finishing right side, I believe it was row number 11 for me. Then remove the beginning marker. You can use stitch holder or scrap yarn. Transfer all the tummy stitch onto stitch holder. Now you disconnect, which means you're going to knit back piece in flat. There you go. You kept the tummy stitch like that, and then use flat pattern. There's the flat pattern in description box as well. And you finish with the right side. So now you're on wrong side. So you make purl instead of knit, right? Except the design. So you don't really need the side marker anymore. So purl until the design marker, and after the design you purl on the wrong side, and then on the right side you have to knit instead of purl. So I decide I'm gonna remove the side marker because I'm gonna get confused. There we go. So you just keep knitting until your desired length, but I am going to start decreasing both sides. It's up to you. You can knit a little bit longer and then start decreasing. But I decide I'm gonna decrease, right away because only one stitch decrease both sides. So decreasing on right side always. Knit one to start and SSK, slip, slip, knit on the right side, and then keep knitting. Do whatever your row, and then until last 3 stitch. Last 3 stitch. And then the other side, you will decrease 1 stitch, which is knit 2 together and knit 1. The reason why I decrease because the shape looks nice, not too square, right? And decreasing row number 2, nothing, just knit wrong side of the row, no decreasing, only right side. And whenever you hit the desired length, you will reconnect everything. And it has to be right side when you connect. Because again, whenever you reconnect, your face into right side has to be, right? So, and now you wanna, do all knit, but you have to knit up on the both side because there's no stitch. So you do whatever on your row. Okay, let's do that together. Knit one and then SSK. This is last SSK, decreasing, and do the knitting and back design until last 3 stitch here, and then you do another decreasing, which is knit 2 together and knit 1 right there. Here comes knit 2 together there and knit 1, and there's no more stitch after that. There we go. And you will knit up both sides. But before you do that, let's get prepared for the tummy. You will transfer those stitch back onto needle because you will keep knitting, right? And you don't really need a mid-stitch marker anymore, so you can take that off. And let's knit up. Just easy, on right on the edge, put the needle in and pretend that you have a stitch there, so knit one there. That's it. And then you have 2 sides, right? So you have to kind of, you don't have to, but you want to knit up same number for both sides. But if it's not same number, don't worry about it too much. Your dog not gonna be mad. My dog never gonna be mad. Oh, mom, it's different, stitch count. Bow, bow, I'm gonna bite you. No, he's not gonna do it. So don't worry about it too much. But if you can knit up, the same stitch number, that'll be best. And for the tummy stitch, just knit straight, super easy. And whenever you hit the other side, just knit up. It's almost finished for the body, so take your time. I don't know you noticed that or not, but for me, whenever I reach end of the knitting, I feel very overwhelmed. I really want to finish soon as possible, and I lose sometimes control and patience, and then ended up I make huge mistake, right? So whenever you feel overwhelmed, just breathe, take your time. And anyway, after you knit up both sides, put the new begging marker and all knit one row. And after this, you will start rib. which is repeat of knit 1 and purl 1. So just knit 1 round, because after the knit up, the stitch is a little bit rigid. So knit once, then make it easier. There we go. And let's do rib. Repeat of knit 1 and purl 1 until your desired length. I did about 1 inch. So another word, whenever you stop the tummy, you have to think, okay, I want to make this much rib, so maybe I should stop a little bit more earlier, or a little bit later. Okay, so you have to make plan ahead. After you knit rib, cast off, and I am going to use stretchy cast off technique with tapestry needle. I call easy bind off. Okay, super easy, by the way. With tapestry needle, do like purl 2 together, like that, and pull the yarn. You have to cut the yarn quite long, and do not drop any stitch off. And in between those two, put the needle in and just like knit 1, the first one, and pull, then drop the first stitch off and pull tightly. And again, purl 2 together. Don't drop the stitch off, and knit first one, just like Kitchener bind off technique, and then drop the first one. This creates stretchy end. I used the yarn over stretchy bind off technique the time, but that creates little bit wavy at the back. If you don't mind, that's fine. You can do the yarn over, bind off. But if you don't like that texture, wavy texture, maybe you want to use this technique. If you want to have stretchy, end. So this is last 3. So purl 2 and knit 1 and 1 stitch off, and 1 more purl 2. I just want to show you how to end, and knit 1, right, and then drop. So there's only 1 stitch left. I accidentally dropped the stitch, and 1 left, right, and just purl 1 there. That's it, and weave the ends off. Now I want to talk about the sleeves, but I want to show you the end. There you go. The purple one, I did the yarn over bind off technique, right? Very stretchy, but a little bit looks, wavy looking. And this one, there's no wavy looking, but very stretchy. So it's up to you. If you use the stretchy bind off, whichever, technique, very easy to put the sweater on your dog. So it's worth to try. The length is pretty much same. It's gonna be perfect size for my dog. This is actually 10-pound Yorkie. Now let's talk about the sleeves. Super easy. I already knit one side. So I'm gonna try exactly same thing. So whenever you try first sleeve, you have to write it down. First of all, you wanna knit those side, knit up, because there's little gap there. Because I use the scrap yarn to do couple times, right? So right now I'm making sure which, place I should knit up. One and two and three. After this, you just knit yeah, you just keep knitting, and before that I am going to add markers. Those 3 extra knit up stitch, 1 original, then 1 between extra stitch, which is right there, 1 2 3 before the third one. That's the extra knit up stitch. The other side is, one before the last original stitch. Okay, and then knit those original stitch straight, and the other side you have to knit up again. So you knit until one last stitch because I want to add markers like the other side, right? So knit, and this is one last original, add marker and knit original stitch, and then now you knit up 3 extra stitch in between top and bottom, and then I want you to add markers. Okay, so knit 1, this is the extra one, and then 2 before the third one. I want you to add marker, but with marker it's really hard to knit up. So I decide I'm gonna remove the marker. I'm trying right now, but I know I'm gonna give up. See, it's really hard. The marker is kind of pushing the needle. So I decide I'm gonna knit up last extra stitch there and then add markers. Nothing wrong because my, the marker is clip. So if you have a clip marker, it's much easier. If you don't, you can use the scrap yarn. So 3 extra, and before last extra stitch, you add markers. And there's reason why. I am going to do the SSK and knit it together around that marker. So anyway, knit until the orange marker. If you just knit up, there's gotta be gap both side of the sleeves, and I want to minimize that, the gap, this method is same as my sweater. If you want to, avoid the big gap, you should use this technique. Remove the orange marker. Now you have one original stitch after the orange marker, and then use the first extra stitch. So those two you will do SSK. Okay, let's do that together. And I'm going to add begin marker. Now SSK there. Slip, slip, knit. Add extra stitch and then decrease. And knit, knit extra stitch, then green marker, the left side, one last extra stitch and original stitch, knit two together there. There you go. And then you do exactly same thing. The mid stitch was the only extra, stitch now, right? Because you add 3 extra and then decrease 2. So ended up I increase 1. And you do the other side same thing. So, 2 stitch extra for both ends. Anyway, you knit until orange marker, the right side SSK, left side knit two together. This is the reason why I add, 2 markers, kind of weird places, right? If you can remember which one is which, you don't really have to add markers, right? Always, decrease, which is SSK and knit two together with 1 original stitch and 1 extra stitch. So that's what you have to remember. Here comes. Remove the orange marker and this side SSK. Slip, slip, knit. And next stitch would be the mid extra stitch that leaves there, and remove the green marker and 1 last extra stitch and original, knit two together. And knit until the begin marker, and then from the begin marker all knit. After this I will start rib, which is repeat of knit 1 and purl 1. With this technique, you can't not close the gap completely, but minimize the gap, and you wouldn't notice sometimes. Okay, so finally, rib, which is repeat of knit 1 and purl 1 until your desired length, and then use the easy stretchy cast off. And again, if this is your first sleeve, write it down how many rows you knit, right? Because has to be, the same length. Again, your dog not gonna be mad if it's 1 or 2 rows difference, but looks better. And I am going to show you easy, stretchy cast off. Once again, and this time, zoom up. There we go. Purl 2 with tapestry needle, right? And then knit first one, and drop the first stitch off. There we go. Purl 2, you just have to repeat. And knit 1, then stitch off. Super easy. And your dog can wear the sweater comfortably. So it's win-win situation. So this is it. It's done. There we go. Dog sweater with sleeves. Perfect. And now I'm gonna discuss about how to attach the sleeves after you finish the sweater. Super easy. I'm not gonna talk about it too much. Around the leg opening, face to right side, just knit up. You don't have to do SSK or knit two together because there's not much gap. You just knit up around. And then after knit up, knit one row and then start rib. It's quite easy, but again, I don't like knitting up too much. I don't know why. So it's really up to you, whichever you prefer. If you don't mind knitting up around the leg opening, completely fine. And again, after knit up, you just make rib, purl 2, knit 1 and purl 1, and then cast off. I already made the sleeve. That's about it. It's super easy. I don't know which method you like, but you know, it's always nice to have choices, right? You want to bind off first, or you want to keep all the stitch. It's really up to you. I made the sleeve quite smaller, but this is perfect size for my dog. Anyway, this is it for today. Enjoy knitting. Bye for now.